Okay, so you want to transplant some trees. You can do evergreens, you can do deciduous. There are certain times of years when you can do them. We had a farm field. This was a hay field 15 years ago, and we brought in 60 trees, maybe 15 of them with a large and medium-sized spade, large and small, and the rest I did by hand. This one is probably 4 times the size in 15 years. This was brought in with a large spade. It was $200 an hour, and it was well worth it. It brings in 11,000 pounds of dirt with it and its original root structure. But the base can only be 6 inches around or less with a $200 an hour spade. You can see that's 12 to 18 inches around now, or diameter, I'm sorry. So if you want to get bigger, it's $500 an hour. But we did cedars, we did evergreens, we did ash trees, we did oak trees. So we got these from the field behind us. It was actually in the woods and then down the road. We were down the road 4 miles and then back in the woods. Everything was so close, so they were able to average 2 an hour. So it cost me $100 for each tree. This one was 100, this one was 100, this one was 100, you know, as it goes on. That cedar was 100, and then there's more of them. We did 11, so $1,100, but they were big trees. Then I did these trees by hand. This pine, and they're growing, but they were a lot smaller. If you're gonna do them by hand, they have to be, you know, 4 feet tall, because otherwise the root structure is so big and you can't dig it out. This one right here was done with a small spade behind a tractor. These were the large spade behind a truck. This one was $30 per tree, this one $100 per tree. You can kind of tell the difference in size, and this one will catch up. One thing, if you're getting trees out of the woods, make sure you get them at the edge of the woods or in a field. If they're in the woods, they're trying to go straight up and get the sun past all the other trees. And this one took 15 years to start spreading out. So you want to get one where it's had a lot of ability to grow out sideways instead of just real tall and narrow. This one we had a problem with because it was so much in the woods and it was so narrow, and it's just finally starting to branch out after 15 years. So that one will be really nice. One tip for putting in these trees is I put these trees in and they were only like 3 or 4 feet apart. So I put those in by hand, and then I hired somebody with a small tractor spade to come out and paid him $30 a tree to move them. But I only put them about, I don't know, 8, 10 feet apart. And I wish I would have put them 12, 15, 20 feet apart. You can see they're all smashed together. When they're tiny, you know, you're like, oh, this looks great and they're a good corner. But now it is a good coverage from the house across the road, but they're smashing into the other ones, and that's gonna start making the limbs on the edge not grow right and die off. So you wanna get them spaced out far enough, and you wanna get them from a field. We actually had a storm and it actually broke off some of these branches, but it wasn't doing too well from being in the woods. Now, when you are first starting it, you need to give that an inch of water twice every day. You need to saturate around the base of it, an inch of water twice a week, I'm sorry, for the first year. Then for the second year, you do 1 inch of water once a week. And then for the third year, you do 1 inch of water every other week, and then you should be fine. I was watering these like crazy, and they're doing great. This one's probably double or triple the size of when we put it in 15 years ago. You can also fertilize. You can get those stakes that you spike into the ground, and you can get those at Menards or a farm and garden store or Fleet Farm. And they're stakes about that long, and they have a little plastic cap on them, and you take a rubber mallet and you pound them into the ground. It tends to break them up. So if you got a wooden stake and you pounded that into the ground first, so you had a hole in the ground, and then you put the fertilizer spike in there, it wouldn't be all smashed up, and you can push it in or, you know, with your foot, or pound it in with that mallet, because they do break up. And what you want to do is So this is called the drip line of the tree. You want to get out at the drip line to put your fertilizer stakes in. A lot of people make the mistake and they put it over by the base of the tree, but the instructions say put it out at the drip line, and that'll get them healthier. And then you put it, I think it'll tell you on the carton, but like a tree this size, this one would be a $500 tree to move. But you'd probably use almost a full box on this one, which gets a little pricey. When we dug these holes, the hole was huge, 11,000 pounds of dirt. So what I did was I coated the inside of the hole with mill organite, and I have another video on there how great mill organite is for grass. But I coated it with mill organite, and then we put the tree in it, and then I just soaked it. You want the roots to be away from air as much as they can, and there's going to be a gap when you have your hole in there, and you want to fill in the gap with dirt because you don't want any air getting in there and drying out the roots. So keep filling with water, keep filling it with dirt. So it's a big process, but it's really worth it. When we got this one, the contractor that came and brought it said this tree would have been $1,000, and he said that tree would have been $1,000 and $1,000 and $1,000 just because of how big they were at the time. Now these are probably $1,500 to $2,000. So the investment is worth it. You get rid of your, just a grass field. You start to get shade. And it's just really a great thing. Also, another thing, when they're first starting out, cut out around all the way out to the drip line if you can, and mulch it. You don't want grass in the beginning stealing all the nutrients and all the rainwater. You want it to be able to soak in. If you have a birch tree, those are really hard to transplant. So I wouldn't recommend them too often unless you really know what you're doing. But cut out here and mulch it so that it can get all the water to the tree and none to the grass. We actually have some fall purpling flowers there right now. So I hope this helped you. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, see if you have any other questions. But this is a very inexpensive way of getting trees onto your property without having to get nursery trees. Okay, so one other thing I was going to tell you is the contractors will tell you can move a tree any time of year, but we had the most success if you have a deciduous tree. If you can move them in early spring before they bud out, that is less stress on them. And the evergreens, if you can move them in the fall, that would be better. You can move these pretty much in the spring or in the fall, but the deciduous, the leafing trees, I've heard that you'll have better success if you do them in the early spring before they bud out. Also, you're going to be able to tell if you're having a healthy tree. You can see this is growth just this year. This is 1 year's growth. You can see all these things, 1 year's growth. So your tree, if it goes out 8 to 12 inches that way, it's going out 8 to 12 inches the other way, and you're going to get a lot more shade. We didn't have any shade here before, and if you really take care of them and water them in the beginning and fertilize them the first few years, you're not going to have very much of an issue after that. Like I said, the watering the first year is major, then the second year a little bit less, and the third year a little bit less, and the fourth and so on. We have not done anything with these things.